So this morning I woke up and it was pouring rain, and then about 10 minutes after I woke up it turned to snow. But the wind's coming from the south and it's right at zero. So I don't know what it's going to do. I'm going to kind of wait a little bit. To go and check my few traps that I plan on checking today. I checked all my traps yesterday. I had a good walk and caught the 2 marten. Because of the heavy rain this morning, I know my fox snares are just going to be probably screwed up. And then with the snow, with the heavy wet snow, so I'm going to wait until I don't have to go very far to check my my footholds and my snares. So I'll do that as late as possible so that if it keeps snowing, that'll be great, and then the damage will be done and I can fix my snares up. Check my my footholds. I'm sure they're empty because of the weather, but I heard on some AM radio station that I kind of had fuzzily in that winter's supposed to come back this week. Last week has just been shit, raining and thawing every day. There's been like every third day has gone down to -10 or something, and then it goes back up above zero, and the weather's been interesting. I mean, the ice is good, but you get soaked walking through the bush, so I don't like wearing my good rain gear walking through the bush because, it was pretty expensive, so that's why I don't like wearing that. I wear my Filson oilskin pants a lot. They keep me dry when things are a little moist, but they're still cotton. They will get saturated, so I bought some good Sims rain gear that I wear in the boat and stuff, and it's awesome. But like I said, it's expensive. I don't like walking through the bush with it. So, anyways, I thought I'd do a little video about my my chainsaws here. So first of all, I'll answer a few questions here that you may have. Yes, I have chainsaws on my bed right now. And yes, I keep guns all the time by my bed, except for when I leave. I don't leave them here. They're my chainsaws and my guns and my valuable stuff. It doesn't stay at the camp. Fuck no. It all means a lot to me. It's there's stories behind each one, pretty much. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about my chainsaws. My chainsaws, they stay inside. I keep them by the door. Some people keep their guns by the door. I keep my chainsaws by the door, and I keep my guns by the bed. As far as the guns go, if you're alone in camp, in your trapping camp, you can keep your guns loaded. Actually, I don't know if it's guns, but you can keep your gun loaded in camp if you're alone in camp. That's a fairly new rule, I believe. I don't keep them loaded, but I keep them ready. I just have, I got my 17 and I got my clip here, just because, I might look out the window and there might be a fox or a grouse, so that's why I take advantage of that. In the back here, this is my my Still 461. Okay, right now I have my long bar on it. It's a 36-inch bar. Okay, I love this chainsaw. I also have a 25-inch bar for it, which is what I use for cutting firewood. The reason I have this bar on it right now is because I have my ripping chain on it. Can you see that? The different teeth. So because I was making some boards to make some more marten nesting boxes. So I'm super happy with that saw. It cuts extremely fast. It's great for cutting firewood, great for milling lumber. I mill lumber by eye. Kind of by eye. I use basically my tools for cutting lumber is my chainsaw and a chalk line and my axe, a wedge, maybe a tape measure, maybe not. I typically I just do the first couple boards with the chalk line, and after that I can do a couple more by eye, and then I'll straighten the next one out with the chalk line. You know what I mean? I'll show you one day how I do that. Obviously, I made all my boards for the stretchers, and I build lots of stuff with my chainsaw. I built several docks at the fishing camp where I work. Maybe you guys will see that in the future. So that chainsaw I've owned for less than a year, and it's done a lot of cutting since I bought it. I bought it used. It was lightly used. I believe it retails for around $1,300, and then plus the cutting attachment. You know, like that right there is a bar is over $200, and then that chain I believe I paid about $70 for. Plus I have my oh shit, that bar must be worth quite a bit, because I think my 25-inch bar was worth about $200. So that's the second chainsaw I ever bought. I guess I should have started with this one first, because this is the first chainsaw I ever bought. This is a Husqvarna 455 Rancher. Okay, it's a homeowner version model. I believe it retails for about $500. I bought it new. I bought it when I lived in BC. So I guided in BC for a season, and then my winter job was to work on a ranch where I could do some trapping as well, on the ranch only, of course, because I wasn't on a trap line, but the ranch was almost 1,000 acres, which sounded like a lot to me at that time. I caught 5 marten, which is pretty good for 1,000 acres, because really 1,000 acres isn't very big, so I was lucky on that one. I got quite a few coyotes, though. I shot most of them. I only trapped one. Now, they had me using this Poulan Pro chainsaw that when I first got there was this old guy working with them, and he'd done everything for 30 years. If you added up his experience, he must have been about 467 years old. You know, he's done everything, and he did it all for 30 years, so I don't know how you answer that one, but anyways, he was a logger for 40 years or something, and we went out and we were cutting stays, they call them, and those are short poles. We were cutting fence rails to make a rail fence, and so you know, he cut that he was the old guy, so he had the chainsaw, and he cut down the tree right onto the gravel road. He'd cut his post, and then he'd cut the remaining of the tree into firewood, and he would dig that thing into the gravel road because it was laying right on the road. He'd limb the thing, and then he'd dig that chain into the gravel. On every cut, every 16 inches, there was a friggin' trench in the gravel road. So needless to say, he messed that saw up pretty quick, and then long story short, he didn't work for them for too long. Not directly related to that, but similar actions. So he was gone, and that was the saw that they left me to use. And I was clearing trail, you know, getting it ready for, or I was going out and giving salt to the cows on the range in the summertime, and cutting firewood for the hunting camp, and doing all sorts of stuff with this chainsaw. And I was forever frustrated with it. Like the chain would go like this in the bar, because the bar had, you know, got gravel in it and just wore the groove real big, and they never had a spare chain for it. I had to try and just fix that chain up, and it was a lot of filing. It was an old file that they had that he had dragged back across when he was filing it. And when he filed it at like 90 degrees. It was just a mess. Anyways, I got super frustrated with that chainsaw. The guy I worked for, I believe he had maybe still 461 as well, but he wouldn't let me use that, and I understand. So anyways, after the guiding season, I vowed to buy myself a chainsaw. So I bought what I thought was a pretty good chainsaw, and you know, all in all, it's been pretty good to me. I left shitty gas into it for too long, so it kind of dies out on me a little bit. I treat my newer chainsaws much better. So anyways, you know, this chainsaw, it's pretty good. I didn't like the idea of cutting my winter supply of firewood with it, and it's not powerful enough to be putting like a 36-inch bar on to be milling lumber and all that. So that's why I wanted to, not only did I want a bigger chainsaw that's professional, but I also wanted to have two chainsaws, okay? Typically, when I go out to cut wood, I actually bring two chainsaws, because if you get your bar pinched, well, if you got another chainsaw, that's a pretty easy problem to handle, you know? You could get it out with an axe or something, or you know, pull on it, which isn't too good. You're putting a ton of pressure on your sprocket when you do that. So, you know, so like I said, I typically go with two chainsaws, especially if I'm going to cut boards, because then I will cut the tree up with say my rancher here, because I got the milling chain on my other one, and then I'll mill the boards with that. Now, so this chainsaw kind of explains why I bought the 461. Super happy with the 461. All right, now I use this Husqvarna Rancher for clearing trail pretty much. It's a good saw for that. And now most of my trails are just walking trails, so a chainsaw never really goes down them. It's just an axed trail, you know. Maybe after a while I'll bring my chainsaw down, just if there's a huge log laying across my trail, I'll just cut a path through it. But so those are my two chainsaws, and when I was on my way up in April, you know, I came here and you know, kind of did a little bit of firewood around and stuff like that, and got everything out of my last trap line to bring over here, and getting ready for the fishing camp owners to come out. On my way up, I decided I wanted to buy this chainsaw. Now this is new. I bought it new, I mean. And like I said, I've had it since April. It's December now. And this is an arborist saw, you know, one handle. This saw I use the most now. I never thought I would use it so much. I do have a tree climbing rig, so that's obviously a nice addition to a saw like this. Now, for most people, why you would ever have to do that, you know, unless you're an arborist, is unlikely. I have done a little bit of it, but I use this saw for first of all, I bring it canoeing with me to cut firewood, okay, if I'm camping, because why not? It fits under the seat in the canoe, you know. I don't bring spare gas. Just if I'm just going for 1 or 2 nights, 1 tank of gas and that is enough firewood. Will cut me enough firewood for what I need for a couple days of camping, you know. And much easier than trying to break sticks and this and that, you know. With that and my axe, which I always have with me, you're pretty well set. Camping in style, I'd say, you know. But I use it for doing small intricate work all the time, you know. I'm cutting instead of like a skill saw, I use this thing. I make my martin boxes with it. I make my martin boards with it. I've always wanted, I can remember my first story with a chainsaw. I believe I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old probably, and I was real into mountain biking when I was a kid. And I went out, and if you see that stuff from the West Coast where they ride on those, they're like the logs cut in half, you know, and they just like the muskrat floats, but the other way, the flat side up, and they're like skinny bridges, you know. And I was real into building stuff with logs, you know. And I you should see the trails I built in my forest in my backyard when I was a kid. And I always wanted a chainsaw. And I remember, obviously, I wasn't allowed to use one at that age. But I went into the garage, you know, one day when nobody was home, and I took, I think my mom was home or something, but, you know, I was out working in the forest, and that was fine. I was just using an axe and a handsaw. But one day I went and took the chainsaw and took it out into the bush and started cutting these logs in half, and I was just, oh man, I couldn't wait to buy a chainsaw. And you know, of course, it wasn't until I was like 20 years old that I bought my first chainsaw. I did have one before that was kind of my dad's, that I used, and I believe that was a Stihl 261, and which is a great saw, super light. That's the same saw that the outfitter has that I work for, and I was cutting firewood with that thing, and then eventually the kill switch wouldn't shut the thing off, which is a common problem on those saws. And so I would just, what did I do? I pressed the decompression thing to kill it, which I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but that's what I did. I did it a few times, and then all of a sudden the thing wouldn't start again. I don't know if it's related or not, but I put it in the back of my truck, and I was going to bring it to the shop. And I think I stopped for lunch on the way there or something, you know. I went out for lunch, and somebody stole it right out of the back of my truck. So, you know, it wasn't running at the time, but it was still a valuable piece of equipment, you know. Must have been $700 or something, that thing new. So, that's actually a saw I'd like to buy again. If my rancher ever conks out on me, it's a comparable size saw, but it's much lighter than the rancher is, and it's a professional series. So both my other saws are professional series. I'm anyone who knows me knows I'm real into my chainsaws and my guns and my trapping and everything like that, and so I just thought I'd do a little video, the history on my chainsaws. Maybe another time I'll talk about the history on my guns. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed my little talk here. Maybe not. Like I said, I'm just kind of trying to decide what to do today with the weather. The snow seems like it's starting to accumulate, so that's good. You know, like I said, basically just rain that looks like snow right now, so we'll see.